5 generations ago, this was one of the most prized wines on the entire mountain. Moscato dell'Etna, a sweet, luxurious wine made from late-harvest, semi-dried grapes. It commanded premium prices. It sat on the tables of people who could afford to be picky. Today, many wine drinkers, even serious ones, have never heard of it. It didn't vanish because it stopped being good. As we'll see, it vanished for a reason that has nothing to do with quality at all. We've talked about empires, earthquakes, admirals, and a bug that couldn't climb a volcano. This last episode is about something different. What this mountain actually makes today. 3 grapes. A handful of methods found almost nowhere else on Earth. A wine style that nearly disappeared. And a boom that comes with a warning attached. Etna's wine identity rests on 3 grapes. Understand them, and you understand the mountain. Nerello Mascalese is the noble grape here. Pour it in a glass, and for a second, you might think you're looking at Pinot Noir. That same translucent pale ruby color, that same suggestion of lightness. Take a sip, and the illusion vanishes immediately. Nerello Mascalese has fierce tannins and high acidity, closer in structure to Nebbiolo than to anything Burgundian. Genetically, it appears to be a natural crossing of Sangiovese and Mantonico Bianco, neither one native to Sicily. It was born in Mascali, on the coast, and needs real warmth to ripen fully. It's also unusually transparent about where it's grown, capable of expressing the differences between individual contrade more clearly than almost any red grape in Italy. There's an old Sicilian saying that sums up how it's farmed. Ciuputa stritu, campo ricco. He who prunes short lives rich. Low yields, concentrated fruit, quality chosen over volume on purpose every single year. Nerello Cappuccio is Mascalese's less glamorous partner, darker, richer, and mellower, prone to fungal problems, not a favorite among farmers. Almost no one bottles it alone. But here's why it matters. Cappuccio carries high levels of acylated anthocyanins, compounds that help a wine hold its color for longer. Mascalese doesn't have nearly as much of this. Blend the two together, and the finished wine looks, smells, and tastes fresher for longer. That is exactly why the DOC legally pairs them. Etna Rosso requires a minimum of 80% Nerello Mascalese with up to 20% Cappuccio allowed, and in practice, the two are often fermented together rather than blended afterward, almost as if the mountain designed them to need each other. Carricante is Etna's primary white grape, and arguably the most exciting story in the mountain right now. It's a natural crossing of Montonico Pinto and Scacco, and its name comes from caricare, to load, a nod to how much fruit the vine can produce. That productivity is a double-edged sword. At higher altitude, especially around 400 meters and up, the yield naturally drops, and the quality rises sharply. Milo, on the wetter eastern slope, is considered the best expression of Carricante anywhere, and it's the only village allowed to put Etna Bianco Superiore on the label. Carricante has one genuinely remarkable trait. Its high acidity acts almost like a natural preservative. Centuries ago, the merchants of Riposto noticed this. Carricante could survive a long sea voyage across the Mediterranean and arrive tasting fresh, when other white wines had already started to fade. Acidity doing the job refrigeration does today. There is an ambition circulating among the mountain's best producers right now, that Carricante could eventually overtake Nerello Mascalese as Etna's defining wine, a white grape outgrowing the signature red on a mountain historically known for red wine. That would be genuinely unprecedented in Italian wine. It hasn't happened yet, but the best examples being made today suggest it's not out of the question. It's also worth mentioning that these aren't the only indigenous grapes growing here. Minella Bianca and Minella Nera grow in small pockets around the mountain. A reminder that Etna's biodiversity is much more than any 3 grape summary can give. So now that we have these unique grapes, what happens after harvest is just as distinctive. Because on Etna, winemaking is as much a philosophy as it is a process. Wine barrels didn't reach Etna until the Middle Ages, and when they did, local chestnut wood became the material of choice. Chestnut has a genuinely useful property. It stabilizes the color of red wine longer than almost any other wood, while adding a faint aroma of toasted chestnut. Merchants shipping wine across Europe noticed the same practical advantage the Caricante grape offered on its own. Wine aged in chestnut simply held up better over a long voyage. Today, only one winery, Barone de Villagrande, still ferments wine in large chestnut vats the traditional way. Everyone else has largely moved on to concrete, steel, or oak. Unlined cement vats have become genuinely popular again for a specific reason. They enhance fruit character, texture, and long-term stability without adding any oak flavor at all. The wine stays as close as possible to its raw source. There's also a real difference in how fermentation itself is handled. Must fermented at higher, less controlled temperatures shows more of the volcanic textural qualities that come from extended contact with the skins and pulp. More complexity, more tannin, though it can turn astringent if the wine is drunk too young or handled carelessly. But the most distinctive thing about winemaking here has almost nothing to do with tanks or temperature. Some of the most respected producers on Etna plan their planting, pruning, and harvesting around the lunar cycle, scheduling important cellar work, even tastings, specifically around what they call fruit or flower days, when the moon and stars are believed to align favorably. It might sound like superstition. In practice, it reflects something more interesting, a style of farming that pays closer attention to natural rhythm than to an industrial calendar. And then there's one of the strangest, most beautiful facts about this mountain. Every year, something different grows wild between the vines. One year, it's chamomile. The next, it might be red poppies. Nobody plants it. It's spontaneous, and it subtly shifts the aroma of that year's wine, just slightly, every single vintage. Remember those roots from episode 1? The ones chasing allophane a meter underground for water? Recent research has found that plant roots may actually emit sound waves while searching for moisture. It's a strange, almost poetic idea that somewhere beneath these vines, in soil built entirely out of old eruptions, the plants themselves might be quietly calling out for what they need. No two vintages on Etna are ever quite the same. The volcano changes, the wild plants change, the rainfall changes slope by slope. This isn't a wine region that can be standardized. It is a living system, and each bottle is a record of exactly what the mountain was doing at that particular year. That same restless, unpredictable character is exactly why one style of Etna wine nearly vanished completely. Moscato dell'Etna, made from late harvest or semi-dried grapes, used to be one of the most important products this mountain made. A sweet, luxurious wine that commanded serious prices. Then, in 1968, the Etna DOC was created, and Moscato dell'Etna simply wasn't included in it. Without DOC recognition, there was no protected name, no regulatory framework to market it properly, and no easy path to distribution. The economics of a niche sweet wine, stripped of any official status, stopped making sense for most producers. So, one by one, they stopped making it. It wasn't neglect, and it wasn't a decline in quality. A wine that had defined the mountain for generations was marginalized almost overnight by paperwork, by simply not fitting into a new system designed, ironically, to protect quality and identity. It's not a unique story either. Across Italy, the DOC system, built to protect regional wine identity, has occasionally done the opposite for traditional products that don't fit neatly into its categories. A few producers on Etna still make Moscato today, entirely outside the DOC framework, keeping an ancient tradition alive on the margins, mostly through sheer stubbornness. Moscato nearly disappeared by being left out of the rulebook, but not every unconventional idea on this mountain has struggled. One, in particular, has spent more than 150 years slowly, quietly proving itself. Serious attempts to make sparkling wine on Etna date back to the 1860s at Castello Solicchiata. The logic was straightforward. A mountain with this much natural acidity and this much altitude should, in theory, be capable of world-class sparkling wine. The idea went quiet for almost a century, revived only in fits and starts, until Etna Spumante was finally formalized as part of the Etna DOC in 2009. The rules required a minimum of 60% Nerello Mascalese, aged on the lees for at least 18 months. In 2021, that minimum was raised again to 80%. In 2014, Etna Spumante made up just 2% of total DOC production. It has grown slowly since, still rare, still relatively unknown outside serious wine circles, but genuinely surprising. A volcanic sparkling wine built on the structure of Nerello Mascalese and the natural freshness of high altitude. This is a wine still at the stage where finding a bottle feels like an actual discovery. Between the grapes, the methods, and even the sparkling wine, Etna has built something genuinely singular over the last few decades. And the rest of the wine world has absolutely noticed. Since the late 1990s, Etna's rise in the world of fine wine has been extraordinary. This is now the darling of sommeliers in New York, London, and Tokyo. Major mainland producers, Antinori and Gaia, have bought land here. International investment has followed. The annual Contrada dell'Etna tasting event, founded by producer Andrea Franchetti back in 2008, has grown from a small local gathering into a genuinely significant international wine event. Current DOC production spans roughly 1,200 hectares, producing about 5.5 million bottles a year. But success has brought a real risk with it, one worth stating plainly. Right now, there's a boom in people planting vines and making wine on Etna simply because it's trendy, because of a cult of personality around the mountain. And that risks producing wine that's merely made on Etna, not wine that actually is Etna. That distinction matters more than it might sound. Etna wine, properly understood, comes from specific indigenous grapes, grown in specific contrade, shaped by decades of accumulated understanding of these exact soils and slopes. Wine made here purely because it's fashionable, from varieties that aren't native, without that inherited knowledge, is a fundamentally different product. It wears the mountain's address without carrying its actual character. The contrada system we covered last episode is the strongest defense against that dilution. When a producer is legally required to name the exact vineyard their fruit came from, there's a lot less room to simply borrow the mountain's reputation without doing the work that reputation was built on. So the boom is real. So is the risk that comes with it. But there's one thing about how wine gets made here that no amount of fashion or investment can shortcut. And one last thing. On Etna, everything is still done by hand. The alberello system, the same bush vine training the Greeks introduced when they first lifted vines off the ground in the 8th century BC, simply cannot be mechanized. Each vine stands alone, trained as its own individual bush, with no trellis wire connecting it to its neighbors. Harvesting means a person reaching around and underneath each vine individually, picking cluster by cluster. Grape crates are kept to a maximum of 15 kilograms, so the fruit doesn't crush under its own weight before it even reaches the winery. On the steepest slopes, there's no machinery at all. No tractors, no mechanical harvesters, nothing on wheels. Just people carrying grapes down a volcano on their backs, exactly the same way it's been done for centuries. Some of the vines they're picking from, as we saw 2 episodes ago, are the very same pre-phylloxera vines that survived a plague that ended wine as most of Europe knew it, still standing, still bearing fruit, still requiring a human hand to bring them in. So that's Mount Etna, the place where the oldest written word of the word wine in all of Italy was found, on a piece of broken pottery on its southern flank, where the Greeks built the foundations of a wine culture and the Romans refined it, where an entire faith nearly ended it and quiet monasteries saved it, where earthquakes and tsunamis pushed vineyards higher up the slope until they found the exact altitude the DOC protects today, where a British admiral's fondness for a sweet Sicilian wine helped keep an empire's navy and an entire local economy afloat. It's a mountain where lava flows separate neighboring vineyards by centuries of geological time, where volcanic ash quietly feeds the fish in the sea below, where pre-phylloxera vines survived the worst plague in the history of European wine, simply because the volcanic sand beneath them was inhospitable to a root louse, where winemakers still consult the moon, where wild chamomile changes the smell of an entire vintage, and where a white grape might, before long, become more important than the red one this mountain has always been known for. And it's a mountain under real pressure, because the very things that make Etna extraordinary, its specificity, difficulty, sheer geological strangeness, are exactly the things that are most at risk the moment when the wider world decides it's fashionable and rushes in all at once. The mountain will outlast the fashion. It always has. Through empires, conquests, plagues, and even its own eruptions, it will very likely outlast us too. What's still an open question, though, is whether the wine culture built here so carefully over the last 2,700 years gets protected with the seriousness it deserves, or whether it becomes just another trend that this volcano patiently, eventually, will outlast as well.